Well, let's go back to our reporter, Ofentse Setimo, telling us what happened in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial today. Ofentse, you were sharing with us what happened in court with a witness who doesn't want her testimony to be broadcast.
Yes, absolutely. That took most of the day today, as you can imagine, even though the court hours were not as long as we would normally have. We would actually adjourn at around 3 p.m. Actually, today we adjourned just after lunchtime with Judge Maumela actually coming back to say that after deliberations that were actually made, he would actually apply his mind and decide on what actually goes forward. In fact, they were saying that this was a learning curve, as they felt that, it's actually a curveball, as suggested by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, who was saying that this is something that could have actually been handled in the urgent court as an urgent application, instead of actually disrupting the actual murder case of which happened so many years ago, saying that it's actually a delaying tactic, and to a certain extent to suggest that this proceedings not be broadcast would actually infringe on the rights of those that are staying in international countries like, European countries. As you know, that Senzo Meyiwa was actually celebrated as a soccer star. And also then Rosengarten, who was representing the media, actually came through saying that, there isn't any evidence that has actually been put forward. As a matter of fact, we don't know whether the life of the state's new witness is actually at threat. In fact, it hasn't been proven, putting it to the judge that should he come to a certain conclusion, it won't be based on facts that have been put forward, to sort of convince the judge. And from the state side, we had Advocate George Baloyi actually come and present an affidavit by the state witness saying that she did not participate in the filming of the Netflix documentary, of which actually documented moments towards the tragic death of the soccer star, saying that she was actually not paid. This was after she was criticized by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, saying that, she actually participated in interviews in that particular documentary and actually got paid for it. But when it comes to testifying to try and find out the murder of the soccer star, she's now coming with limitations, saying that it should not be broadcast live. So those were some of what actually transpired. We know that Judge Maumela, as I mentioned earlier, before we were disrupted technically, actually mentioned that this should be a learning curve, that this should actually be submitted at the urgent court instead of actually being part of the main murder trial, in terms of delaying the actual murder trial that has been so much anticipated for so long.
And it's a prolonging of the pursuit of justice in this matter, which has dragged on now for a decade. Ofentse, it will be also interesting to see how Judge Maumela plays this one. So what's expected to happen tomorrow, very briefly?
Well, tomorrow we're expecting the judge to actually hand down a ruling regarding whether we will be allowed to be broadcasting live inside the court, or whether they would actually ask for the cameras to film what is actually transpiring and only show the images of what actually transpired during the trial, when this particular witness was testifying only after the trial had concluded. So it will be interesting as to what reasons will be put forward as to whether we are allowed in or actually are allowed out. There were some citing of cases of like the Oscar Pistorius case, where there was an argument put forward to say that, he was uncomfortable in terms of testifying on camera. But there were some limitations that were put forward to say that at least the audio recording can actually work, instead of actually showing him talking on the screen, as that might actually make him more anxious.
Ofentse Setimo, thank you very much for that.